Excellent. Hey, I'm going to do something that not many speakers do. You're going to hear a click, and then I'm not going to ask the obvious question. I see the red line, so I'm just going to trust that the technology is working. How about that? So you do see my screen. This is the right session if you're here to hear about OneNote or Microsoft Loop, how to pick the right app for your productivity needs. What a mouthful. That's a huge title, but it's the best way to describe it. Thanks for the introduction, Chirag, and it is really cool to be able to be at Teams Nation again, a fantastic conference. I want to start with something pictorial. Now, you might recognize this movie or this scene. Something epic happens very, very shortly. Oh my. I got to get a slow. Oh my. Oh, beautiful. Just beautiful. Oh, I'm just amazed. What's going on here? Arm wrestling? Old friends, surely. Old friends. I think you follow what I'm getting at here. Maybe not. Maybe you don't know that this is a scene from the movie Predator. Now, short pause there. One of the actors has passed on recently, so Apollo Creed, rest in peace. You're an amazing guy. But that was what they memed or called the epic handshake. And so you saw these two very muscly people saying hello in the most macho way. It was fantastic. But you did see that I adapted that as a handshake, a macho handshake, or let's just push the macho out of the way, a friendly, energetic handshake between two applications that we're going to talk about today. We are talking about OneNote and Loop. We're going to talk a little bit about the background of both, take a look at some scenarios, and I'll tell you what, there's just such a list of features that I had to, one, pre-record some of the demos, and two, I promise you, I did not cover everything, so we'll do our best to, in section 3, do a bit of freestyle. So if there's any questions and requests, then I'm going to try and show them live as well. So moving on, what are we talking about? First, we've got to start with OneNote. Take a look at those icons. You might get a bit of nostalgia as you look at these. 2003 OneNote right through to today. It's a 20-year-old app. Oh my goodness, it turned 20 last year. It's the latest thing that Microsoft does. They celebrate birthdays for every application, if you haven't noticed. Very, very popular. So I first used it on a tablet PC, Windows tablet PC, and OneNote was amazing. It was the first app that made that pen actually feel like an amazing tool to write with things. We also saw it eventually, it would synchronize files to file servers. It eventually was supported on SharePoint. And then it was in 2013 when the OneNote notebook became part of the site template. And that was a big deal. In fact, in New Zealand, we had a conference, I think it was the SharePoint conference back then of New Zealand, and I ran a collaborative OneNote notebook with a number of different conference delegates to collaboratively take notes together. So I've got a long history, and you might notice by the cape behind me, I was one of the original OneNote Avengers. SharePoint Online and OneDrive Online, we had external access and guest access, so that enabled us to start sharing notebooks. We also had the education side of things, starting to use the OneNote class notebook. And this was a very clever way that I believe it was a Canadian school that found a way to hack into the notebook, because the notebook was just a folder with the one files inside it, and they'd be able to permission that notebook and divide it into different places so that the teacher could have their own space, students could have their own. And Microsoft picked up on that, and they made it a thing into the official product. The OneNote mobile app certainly grew and grew. It started to also take on features like Office Lens and be able to scan receipts and the like. And we came to this part where Microsoft had this amazing vision to do Universal Web UWP, one of those apps, right? No, I don't know. It's an acronym. I forget what it is, but whatever it was, it didn't work, sadly. the whole thing was about to try and have a common app between Windows Phone, all the different devices, and it didn't quite pull it off. So OneNote was one of the hero products for that, one of the first to be brought into the Windows 10 app launcher, app center, but it's it didn't do so well. And in the background, a lot of things happened to make that possible, and there was a lot of confusion around which version of OneNote, what should we use, it's missing features. Microsoft saying that, oh, we're not going to support the desktop version anymore, you've got to use Windows 10, and then backtracking on that because everyone wanted it back and they wanted that full experience of OneNote. And so we returned to that classic OneNote in 2019, and they brought it back, and there's been improvements since. So that's a bit of a walk through memory lane. OneNote, how can we access it? Well, through those confusing years, they did make this amazing decision to make OneNote free. So you can download the desktop app and use it for free. It is also, of course, part of your Office suite and part of Office 365, M365 subscriptions. The notebooks are stored in OneDrive. OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint or SharePoint Online, and therefore in Teams as well. And is now part of the Notes tab in Teams. So it's become quite a central place for teams to take notes, which is great. And it's built into various different other group-powered apps like Microsoft Teams, like Outlook Groups, Planner, various other bits. So OneNote, and I'm sure there's a lot more to that history that I'm missing, but that's a run through. Now let's talk about Microsoft Loop. New kid on the block, semi-newish. It has been in the works. It was announced a couple of years back, but it's only recently gone to general availability in November 2023. And what is Loop? Loop is an app that you can use in two different ways. You can use it in the app that you're currently in, like using components, go into a chat, add this component to be able to start taking notes together or work on ideas, and then be able to share that component around into other applications that support live Loop components. And that's the point. They are live. You can see the activity going on as soon as you open up the message. The other part to Loop is workspaces and pages, and that's bringing those pages together into what has been compared to OneNote as it looks like a notebook, pages and subpages. And it's also compared to a number of other applications in the market too. So it's an app it's about trying to encourage sharing of ideas, blocks that form pieces on the page, almost like small little mini apps, and not so much about a toolbar, but just getting things done. It is stored in SharePoint Embedded, which is something that changed its name recently. Was Syntax Repository Services, I remember that, and those workspaces are sitting in a form of SharePoint, now called SharePoint Embedded, which doesn't actually appear in our tenant till very recently, something coming to the admin center. Loop is very fast synchronization, and if I'm comparing the two, OneNote and Loop now, Loop is certainly a faster syncing experience. I still have a few issues with OneNote, which I think is a hangover from the Windows 10 kerfuffle. So that is oh, right, yes, licensing for Loop and storage. It is available free to use with Microsoft accounts. There are some limitations, as in how many workspaces you can create with a Microsoft account. You can create workspaces using an M365 E3, E5, A3, and A5 license. Create workspaces. But if you want to be invited into those workspaces and be members of those workspaces, actually, I should have updated that. It should be O365, E3, E5. In fact, it's available to be a member from anyone in your organization. Actually, I haven't tried it with a frontline worker. But the point is that if you want to build and create workspaces, you have to have that higher license, and everyone else can participate. Loop components are stored in the OneDrive of the person who created them. So if they have added them to a meeting, added them to a chat, the person who added that to that little conversation, email, Word document, whiteboard, the component is saved into their OneDrive. And yeah, I mean, that's pros and cons of that. So certainly admins have voiced their opinions about how we're supposed to see and manage these things and what happens when people leave. So yeah, some kerfuffles around that too. You'll hear the word kerfuffle a few times. Loop workspaces are stored in that SharePoint embedded, as I said, but they're still part of your tenant. So while it's a headless version of SharePoint that you can't access, they're really created for other applications for getting the full rich way of storing files inside a SharePoint file storage, but they are their own separate containers. So yeah, there's still a story really that's building out there in terms of how to manage that, and we have some updates that are coming through soon. Right, before we get into showing some demos, this may be one way of looking at it. We love Venn diagrams. I thought that they were quite a nice analogy for loop, given that we're talking about loops as well. So in our OneNote loop or arc, we have a number of features that clearly make OneNote quite unique. When comparing digital ink, I can scribble on a OneNote notebook, and we'll see that a bit later. I can print to it. I can share it with my team very easily. I can copy links to paragraphs, all sorts of things like that. And over on the loop side here, it's really about some of those more unique features around sharing the components live and with people, sharing pieces of things rather than links to paragraphs. We're also seeing things like being able to mention people inside the content, and then that brings them in based on where they've been mentioned, a bit like a comment and the like too. So I'm not going to go through each of those, but there is some overlaps. And so that is, both of them sync the contents. They both have mobile apps. You can take meeting notes with them both. They both have versioning and attribution, and they're all both covered by M365 security and compliance. So that's good. Similarities and differences, but there's something that's happened very recently, and that is that loop components are now supported inside OneNote. So we'll see this a bit later in the demo, but that brings some of those features that were in loop and exclusively in loop now into OneNote. So we'll keep moving along. And, when these overlaps in the products are there by design, this is really the purpose of this presentation. How are you supposed to choose when you've got multiple tools that seem to do the same things? When OneNote and Loop, what should we do? What's the best way to do this? Well, I think what we do need to do, what do we need to do for your situation? Funny. I think I've changed the color on some of my fonts there. My point was, maybe it's invisible, invisible ink, is to list the things that you need for your situation. List your needs, right? Just start there. What is it that we need to do? And rather than, you might have loyalty or a familiarity with an app, but just start with your needs and just evaluate there. So we're going to do that with some of the common scenarios and step through it. So we first of all look at meetings. I want to list some of the common things that I think most people care about. Supporting the meeting lifecycle. We want to be able to have notes and various things before, during, and after a meeting. We need to share an agenda. It's good to be able to capture some of those meeting details, certainly the notes for the meeting and being able to take those collaboratively. Listing tasks that we might need to follow up, sharing notes internally and externally. So depending on your situation, you might want to share these notes easily outside of that. Recapping, and then the recurring meetings. Let's have a look, first of all, at the OneNote experience. So here we go. I'm going to narrate this. We're in a meeting invite, and I'm choosing to share my OneNote notes, and I'm choosing a notebook that I know my audience or my invitees are going to be able to get to. So it pops a link into the meeting invite. And that means that, great, I've got that page. I'm setting that up so that I can prepare people for the meeting, share an agenda. And I'm doing that within the full version of OneNote, knowing that in the meeting invite, as you see here in the running meeting, people can get to these notes because I have had that in mind. Hopefully this notebook is shared with everyone. So we're taking some notes during that meeting. We're also, I think this one here, I'm just typing out a task, a thing that we might need to do as a follow-up task. And they're using that follow-up flags for Outlook tasks. This actually creates a task in my inbox. I can set a date and save it. I can manage that task from there. If I double click on it, it's going to be able to open up and use that. We'll come back to that soon, but here's one way to share those OneNote notes with people outside of the meeting by emailing the whole page. It means it's a separate copy now, but at least we've done that simply. Now I'm going to open up the task here in Outlook, and I could mark it as complete, but one of the things I can do, and it's a bit finicky, but it works, I can assign this task to a team member. And so that sends them a Outlook form in one sense. It is a task, but Laura can take that, respond to it, and it reports back about how she's doing with that status. Right. So how about Loop? What's the Loop process in this? How did I do this? That's right. So we are in a meeting invite, and it's in Teams. I've added collaborative notes at the bottom underneath the details for the meeting. I'm adding an agenda. Now this is creating a loop. It doesn't say loop, it just says collaborative notes, but it's powered by Loop here. I'm creating a little section to, like with the OneNote scenario, I want to prepare people for the meeting and give them a few things that will help them, do things that they can bring their best value to the meeting. So really important. And this, I've inserted a table, and I've said, look, let's just share some of your ideas about what we want to discuss. And there's a voting column there that might be quite useful. So we send that off. Now that comes through in the meeting invite. We're looking at it here in Outlook on the web, but it does come through in the desktop version of OneNote. And Laura is adding her idea in. The loop component is live and there in the message. She doesn't have to open a link to something else like a notebook. It's all there. We'll join the meeting. There you go. There's our loop components, our meeting notes. And I'm also just doing this just before I join. And there we go. Let's join. Okay. So as we're getting into this meeting, the cool thing about collaborative notes in this experience is that it actually opens it up on the side immediately there. So if you have done the preparation and you have added those notes earlier, it brings it front and center to everyone in the meeting, not shared with external people joining the meeting yet, which is a bit of a downer at the moment, but we expect things to progress further along. I've clicked a link, and that's opened the meeting notes into that full page experience. So I'm not just stuck with that narrow sliver down the side of my meeting, and we're just making some notes to get. I've mentioned someone who is not in the meeting. So there's Matt, and I can choose to share this with him. And we're capturing some follow-up tasks as we talk our way through the meeting in a task list at the bottom. So this task list is quite fancy in that I can assign tasks to people. They're going to get a notification where they've been mentioned. And I think, from here, I think I go ahead and finish the meeting. That's right. So we're looking at the meeting life cycle here now with Loop. Finishing up with the meeting, what do we need to do with these notes? We've taken some good notes. We can go back and we can see things in the recap. I think that's where I go next. Yes. I love this, being able to sit back and watch this automatic dude demonstrate stuff and narrate it. So we've got our recap. We were going to go into the, yes. So we can look at another view of the tasks. Now this is new too. We can watch it in a Kanban view, or we can open up the planner in the background. When a task list is created, it creates a plan that's connected to the loop there. So that means that we've got that full experience of planner to be able to manage those tasks. Now, it is a separate plan. It's not connecting to an existing plan that you might have, but you can move that task over to other plans if you need to. It just means it'll break the link there in the loop for that meeting. I'm in the Planner app now within Teams, and I'm looking at the new Assign to Me view, and I can see the tasks that have been assigned to me. There it is. I can update that there after the meeting and update that progress so we can come back and talk about it later. And one of the things I like to do is set that, so add it to my day, just so that I know how things are progressing. I can work on things and focus that way. So lots of different ways to do things. And I'm not going to summarize things. I think it's all about just going through that list and saying what's going to suit my needs, and how might it work best for me or for my team. Let's look at the mobile situation now. Important that if we are working out and on the go, that we can access our notebooks and workspaces. We can edit using the most common features in both apps. Maybe important to be able to create a new notebook or workspace, and offline access. Right. Well, I'm going to take you outside, and I'm actually going to have to try and narrate and speed this up a bit. Sadly, I couldn't share the sound with you. Not playing very nicely. I've done a bit of testing before the conference, but can't get more mobile than this. Or maybe you can. You could climb a mountain, but I'm in a kayak, okay? So I'm outdoors. This is OneNote is the mobile app, and I'm going to just skip through along the timeline here to keep things moving along. But I have the same layout that you saw in OneNote. Actually, we're going to have a look at that project later. It's a project brief. We've got our pages and sub-pages that are part of the notebook, and the general channel, which is also the general section of the notebook for the team. And skipping along, so I go back in here, I can see that I've got a table, I've got relevant links. Oh, what's that? Oh, loop components in OneNote. Not quite supported in the mobile app yet, but that's all right. We'll have a look at where that all connects later. Skip along. Right, so here's our sections again, nicely colored. Talking, that guy can talk, my goodness. I'm looking at another page within the notebook as well. So that's, looking at this structure of a notebook that I had created. Now I'm switching over to the Loop mobile app, and I'm looking at the workspaces that are available to me, and I'm going to go into Project Radio. I'm looking at some of the recent pages that I've been working on. Good way to pick up from where I left off. Going into a workspace, I could create a new workspace from that top corner. And here's where the pages and sub-pages are displayed a little differently than OneNote. There is that structure there in terms of pages and sub-pages, but it works out. It's good. I can see all the pages that I need to there. Skip along. So much to show you, so little time. I feel like I'm Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Willy Wonka. Here we go. Here's the task list that I can update on a page to do with the project and the project brief. I can't open Planner because I haven't got it installed on my phone anymore. I uninstalled it, but it would be good to see that link through to the Planner app within Teams, wouldn't it? It would be quite good. So bit further along, talking. Darrell thinks that everyone's listening, but they're not because we've got it muted. Come on, where are you? All right, bit more. All right, that was going back over to the notebook. What we're trying to show here. That's right. Yeah, so some of the features that we can do, and I really like this part of the OneNote mobile app, is that being able to take a picture inside the notebook used to be quite a frequent way that I would take a picture of receipts, and that you could use this feature where you choose the document view and it flattens out whatever you're taking a picture of and makes it easier to see. I know that's upside down. It's because I'm down under. Bad joke, I know, but you're going to get plenty of those throughout this presentation. And yeah, that's one of those great features. Can't do that in the Loop mobile app. And my final point is that OneNote has offline access. Loop does not. Loop has to be online. You need to have a cellular or Wi-Fi signal. So much more to show. Personal knowledge management, right? So there is a need sometimes, often for us to bring together our research, our own notes, our own thoughts that aren't necessarily shared with the rest of the team. So how do we deal with that, and what do we need? We need to be able to gather our links. Maybe we create tables to store information and keep them all orderly. We love our linked pages and being able to, create that way of being able to navigate our personal knowledge management space. Pasting content with references. Love that about OneNote, being able to copy and paste things and have that reference sitting there underneath and easy to go back to. And there's embedded content. So here we go with OneNote. Again, I might have to skip through this a bit fast because how are we doing for time? I told you there's so much to show you. Here's a notebook where I've created a table of contents. So I can jump around pages because I've copied a link to a page and I've popped them into this list. So that's one of the cool things about OneNote here. It's jumping directly to the paragraph in that one. So you can get quite granular inside a OneNote notebook and help yourself around that navigation. I've copied a link to, I think that was the paragraph, and easily just drop that in. It highlights that navigation to that place in the notebook. We've got the ability to insert tables. The tables are quite basic, but I mean, they do the job. I do find the dragging things around in columns a bit infuriating, a bit hard to manage, but we can shade things. We can change the order of columns. We can sort columns as well. So some very basic features here for working with tables in OneNote. Let's skip along. One of the things, though, that I haven't really had to use much before, converting this spreadsheet to an Excel spreadsheet. So what it does is it does change it to a spreadsheet, and it embeds the spreadsheet inside the sheet. So you'll see as I double click that, I'm now opening the full experience of Excel. I'm updating the table, which is now a spreadsheet, and those updates show now in a kind of a read view on that page. In this case, I have printed. Oh no, I've actually copied a larger spreadsheet into the OneNote. So I've uploaded that file, and some files are supported this way within OneNote. The file will actually live inside the notebook, which means that you have to update it from there, but it is kind of handy. And then there's these other places to be able to embed content as well. So that list has grown for OneNote for being able to embed YouTube videos. What's this one? I think this is a Vimeo, might be a course. Oh no, it's Adobe Spark. So get into some of that embedded content. I think Canva's are supported there too. This one down here was a slide share. So you get the idea. There are a few different pieces of content that you can embed inside OneNote. And what are we looking at here? All right, this was just me grabbing some content from an article and just showing that process of copying and pasting content. That I could copy that paragraph, and then you can see the reference link underneath. So there's some good features there, and there are tons more that you can use for personal knowledge management. What do we do with Loop? How's this? 17 minutes. I'm going to keep going. We have, all right, similar kind of layouts. But let's actually start off by copying a link to did I start there? Okay. I'm just copying a link to a document, pasting that in to my personal knowledge space. So this is quite cool, being able to see that tile, which actually does update. So if I go and update some content inside that, then it will show slightly differently on that thumbnail. I'm also able to grab a link to a video, YouTube video, and then I'll paste in there as well, and plays embedded. So there's a few examples of embedded content there. Let's just keep skipping along. So here's the magic, right? So wherever we start to work with components in the Loop application or within things like chat and Outlook, we're going to be able to copy this component and let's see, paste it into another page. Is that what I do? Oh, no. Oh, I think I skipped over that. I think I show it a bit later on, but here's inserting the table and comparing this capability. So the tables are very powerful in Loop. The different column types that we have, the way that we can channel or rather reorder things in the tables. We can, if I just skip along here a bit more, using a date column, so quickly using a date picker. There's our labels as well, which become quite useful for this next feature, where if we are using labels, we can change to this Kanban board view. So that might be used for tasks. It might be just another way of viewing the way that you're changing information, but you can open up each of those cards and drop in the information directly there. Or you could add some new fields as well. We've got different ways to filter columns. You can choose a column and change or change the condition, whether it's available or not, add multiple filters, and there we go, apply that. So that's one way to look at that table and filter down on that information. Lots of different ways to view it. hide a column. So if you've got lots of columns, just to make it a bit more manageable, you can hide them in from the view. And then there's this, I haven't talked about that yet. Not quite public yet, but keep an eye out for that one. Table rules. I won't say any more. Let's skip on. Let's see, was that? No, that's the same video. Cool. All right, so team knowledge management. We're going through a number of these different scenarios now, and keeping things moving quickly. So all the same things that we want from personal knowledge management. Of course, we want to do it with a team, but we want to make it easy to add this notebook or place to our workspace in Teams. We also want to share easily with new team members. We want the team to own the file so that we're not having to worry about, can you get access to this? You're part of the team, so that's great, easy. And we want to be able to sync reliably. So whatever content we put in there, we don't want to have to worry about, is it up to date? Have you clicked the sync button? So there's all sorts of things there. Again, we'll just see some of these in action. Full of demos. So our OneNote notebook is now the default for a notes tab. Bye wiki, hello notes, and that is powered by our OneNote. And so each channel that has a notes tab is going to create a section in the notebook that is named after the channel. This is the general channel, so there's a general section in the notebook. And where does that notebook live? It lives in, that's right. It lives in the site assets library. And you can see I went through the same train of thought as I recorded this video. So there it is, site assets library in the background. Now, I mean, it's been there ever since 2013. Not very accessible from the Teams level, I might add, but at least it's there and it's shared with the team. And you can see I've got the structure that I'd like to share notes with, of course, people in the team. So we're now going to copy a link to a place in the notebook, try and draw our attention to a certain thing that I want people to look at, have a conversation in the team. And so the team members, of course, can take a look at that brief and open that up, and it'll jump them to where that is in the notebook. We talked about how managing access is as simple as making sure the members of the team are part of the team so they can all see the notebook. And they can also open that up. And this includes guests. So that's an important point at this stage, that I can open up that notebook, and with the right permissions, if the organization is allowing it, I can do that. I can't, if you just saw that there, I couldn't mention someone in the notebook. So, that could be a useful feature. It's certainly becoming a useful feature across other products in Office. I can see page versions. OneNote's way is that it folds down previous versions of that page, and then you can go back and check them and see them, and you can see where the changes are. So that's quite cool. See the recent edits and sort of dial that back and see what sort of activity is going on. And nice to be able to find who has authored things, the attribution, who contributed what to a page, which is quite important for these open collaboration, spaces. Moving right along, what else have we got here? Edits, sorting pages. Yeah, lots and lots of stuff. All right, moving over to Loop. What do we do with our team knowledge management? Well, we will use a workspace. Oh, maybe I didn't click play. Let's try that again. Just move this along. All right, so here's our workspace. We've got members, all right, but note here, the membership of the workspace is quite independent of a team, of a group, of a plan, of a site, of a whatever. So that is a blessing and a curse. That means you've got to manage the membership of that space separately as opposed to a team. So we add the person to the workspace, invite them, they're going to be able to access it. And so I'm having to maintain the membership across the team and the workspace if I choose to use both. Scooting along, and copy links to the whole page or even to a piece of the page, and turn content into a component to share. So rather than just a link now, as I paste it into the conversation, it's actually live. I don't have to click it to go anywhere. I can actually start working on that directly in the conversation. So when that's sent off, then people can work on it. We've got tables, we've got content that I can mention people. Where's my cursor here? We've got secret stuff that I had to blur. And 5 minutes, my goodness. Okay, scooting along. Lots of stuff. Versioning, attributions. I thought that I had. All right, okay, that's cool. And we can restore and recover pages there too. What else have we got? I think we'll skip along here. Oh yeah, seeing people working at the same time. So the sync is almost instant, all right? So you see the cursors moving along. That's really important to know. But as I'm hovering over there, you see the changes that have been made by Laura. That's the attribution inside the page. I can see who changed what that way with Loop. Okay, so we've seen comparisons back and forth about, yes, so much information, that's right. But hey, let me ask you, why not use both? We've seen some hints of that throughout some of the things I've showed you. So let's take a look at the meeting scenario where we could use both and why we might use both. So our meeting, here we go. We've got the agenda and rather the collaborative notes. So that's interesting. We've got that in. Let's go over to our meeting notes page that we might be using. And this is where OneNote, I might be using it to make my own notes around the meeting and maybe, wanting to use a pen as well. So I'm using the feature in OneNote to insert the meeting details. And when there's Loop collaborative notes, they actually become part of that content that's inserted into the meeting notes in the page, including the component. So if this was a way of you to, maybe gather your thoughts and start to, work off to the side a bit before you share it with the team, then that's a way to bring that content in. I feel like I've got so much to show. And the other scenario, if you are quite keen on using OneNote for inking, there's nothing else that does that right now apart from Whiteboard. Of course, you can ink inside Word and PowerPoint and the like, but this is me inking within OneNote, and I've inserted a Loop component into my OneNote as well. And so I might be combining the two, and I'm going to share that component in a email off to Laura so that she can also help contribute. And then I can go back to my OneNote, keep working on storyboarding ideas and sketching, and I can see some of the updates she might pop into the table as well. So that's Laura in the background there receiving that same content live in Loop. All right, I don't think we've got time for requests. I was going to freestyle it and say, okay, got any questions in terms of what do you want to see? I was going to try and, do that as well. But yeah, we are short on time. And maybe I'll summarize it out and definitely open up for questions. But we have seen some examples of where there are definitely overlaps, intentional overlaps, I might add. Now, we do often get annoyed when a tool does the same thing and, oh man, can't Microsoft focus on the tools that already exist and make them work properly or work better? Why are they creating a new thing? But the new thing and the intention with Loop is that it is an intentional overlap. It is about bringing those collaborative spaces into the places that we currently work so that we can quickly create that space, share it around, but it's not really, you can use it persistently, but it's not meant to be the end place for where you keep that information, that you would bring it out into a full application like your Word, your PowerPoint, the various other full featured applications to publish those ideas. So coming back to that method, I know, we're either we're loyal to OneNote, maybe we're pretty keen on Loop now and we're not using OneNote notebooks, so maybe we're trying to do both. Just base it on your needs. Really, the answer is find the app that's suitable to you. Choose the tool that meets your needs and consider the impacts of using both. So that that's me. Darrell as a service, talking flat out. I could just about say that was, would you say 80% demo, but not necessarily live demo. Those are my contact details, and certainly open for questions for the very last bit of time that we have. And here's the rating card for taking pictures and letting us know what you thought of that session. But feel free to come off mute and let's have a chat if you wish.
Awesome, Darrell. Thanks very much. That was good. And like ever, I think there's so much to share and show. And I think you did a great job in the next 40 minutes or so. So I think good stuff. I think good participation from the attendees. Some of the insights. I'm not sure if you're seeing some of the chat. I think there was one.
Yeah,
was one
Philip's got a good one there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about Loop workspaces, that they are difficult for admins, and that is true. You'd be happy to know that in the message center last week, they had announced the new SharePoint Embed Admin Center, or it's a part of the SharePoint Admin Center. So you'll be able to go in and see not just Loop workspaces, but other things that are using SharePoint Embed. It's going to be quite basic at the moment, showing you the spaces, who created it in terms of an owner. You can restore, you can delete, you can soft delete. And we expect that there'll be some other admin features coming in that space too. But yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Wow, yeah. Thanks, and like, I know I haven't done full justice to either product, but it's a start. So thank you all for watching. Do we still need Office policy in the admin center to enable Loop features? Ian, there's a simpler way to do that now. But if you do choose to use it the way to enable Loop in the admin center, then it's going to do it for your whole organization. So if you do want to do it granularly, you'll want to use the Office policies and just enable it for certain groups of people if that's your method. Yes, limited formatting, you're right, Loop, and there is no undo button. The Control Z works, I've found, but the formatting is deliberate, that we're not supposed to be paralyzed by the choice of 500 different fonts, but we can bold, we can use headings. We've got collapsible headings now. There's italicized, underline, some of the key basic things, colors and highlights. But yeah, we're not supposed to have like a full range of word level formatting options. When will guest accounts for Loop come? Shortly, soon-ish, this year. It's all been talked about that it's planned for this year, and I understand the challenges, but it will be close, and my goodness, it'll be magnificent. We did see demos of it at Ignite for Loop workspaces, that you can invite guests in and what that looks like. Today, if you're a member of a team and that team is using loops, you as a guest can add those loops and read those loops in a Teams channel. So at least we have that. Whew. How about that?